2025 free agency shook things up. Some dynasty assets gained serious steam and others not so much. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Audible YouTube channel, and it's time to go on the hot seat as we do every week. Footballguys.com. That's your website. You'll find me here most every Tuesday throughout the offseason. Not next Tuesday. We'll talk about that at the end. Touching on topics of interest to fantasy managers, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, like, comment, share, do all the YouTubey stuff. We appreciate that. The hot seat's all about the guest, and this week we have another great one. My colleague at Football Guys, Jeff Blaylock. You can follow him on the X device at Jeff Blaylock. And Blue Sky too, right?
At Blue Sky too.
All right, we're here to cover the big winners, losers, the sneaky risers, potential buy low candidates, and all kinds of other dynasty shenanigans. But first, just before we dig in, Jeff, give me your big picture, your takeaway on the start of free agency.
And even before that, just thank you, Bob. It's always a pleasure to chat football with you. Any chance I get, I will take it. So thank you for having me on the show
Appreciate
today.
it, man.
Free agency. Well, I think we started with two of the biggest prizes. The two big wide receivers have stayed put, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of free agency. T. Higgins is still in Cincinnati. Chris Godwin is still in Tampa Bay. And you still have some veteran receivers that are out there still waiting for their call. People like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, all of whom will be 31 or older. Johnson will be 29 this year, but certainly older receivers. They're still waiting for their call. We saw some musical chairs among what I would consider to be the lower tier quarterbacks. We saw Sam Darnold going to Seattle, Geno Smith going to Las Vegas from Seattle, Justin Fields going to the Jets from Pittsburgh, Daniel Jones leaving New York and by way of Minnesota, leaving Minnesota for the Indianapolis Colts. And the shadow over all of that is the ongoing soap opera that is Aaron Rodgers. It's a career arc that should, at this point, be playing out almost like a Shakespearean tragedy, but honestly, it's looking more like a Greek comedy with every passing day.
Yeah, I will see how it plays out. Well, it sounds like Pittsburgh's the most likely landing spot at this moment. The Giants still opening. Cleveland still has an opening. I think they want somebody they don't have to pay the full salary. There is one of those still available. Russell Wilson, maybe
Yes.
another in Atlanta, who
Yep.
Kirk Cousins, we heard after the draft, may be open to a trade. That possibility. We'll get into all that. Speaking of the draft, if you haven't already, check out the Football Guys Rookie Draft Guide version
Mhm.
2.0 is available now. Totally free. Go to footballguys.com/rookie guide. Get that updated player profiles, 120 plus prospects, all the combine information, everything updated from the combine and from workouts as they're ongoing before version 3.0 hits. Get the free version
The
2.0
free
right
version.
now. Yeah, it's
It's
good
awesome.
stuff.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
really. Yeah, really been a helpful prospect for me. So let's start out with the biggest risers. We'll kind of go by position. I think you and I see a lot of these things the same. The quarterback position. Let's start there. I know you've got listed Justin Fields, J.J. McCarthy, and Jaden Daniels. Maybe Daniel Jones. We'll
Maybe.
see how that works out. I think in particular, Jaden Daniels is the easy call here. And by the way, the big winner in all of this is Joe Burrow, right? And I think the Bengals in general, anytime we get that certainty, that we're going to have an extended period of a core group of super high end producers all together, that's great news. But aside from that, I like this list. Justin Fields comes in. He was quarterback 6 over the 6 games he started in Pittsburgh last year. Jaden McDaniels going back. They add Larry Tunsil. They did a lot of things. They got Deebo Samuel in there. They kept Zach Ertz. There's a lot to like there. We liked him anyway. I think on the Football Guys Dynasty rankings,
Mhm.
number 3. He's not going to rise up much higher at this point behind Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. But I think McCarthy and Fields could rise up. Let's go with McCarthy. What do you think?
Well, I mean, J.J. McCarthy, I think, is one of the biggest winners because he now knows that his team is committed to him as their starter. They got there eventually. There was a little bit of a dance and some dating with Aaron Rodgers, but they decided not to go to prom. So that leaves McCarthy now as their starter. I think they've committed to him. He's got lots of offensive weapons around him. He has a great chance to succeed. And perhaps most importantly, for a young quarterback who has yet to take a snap in a regular season NFL game, he does not have to look over his shoulder. Right now, the only other quarterback on the active roster is Brett Rippon, hardly a threat to take the starting job away from McCarthy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, having Justin Jefferson just as a starting point. If you're worried about Jefferson's value, don't. He has proven to be very capable, regardless of the quarterback. He's played with five
Mhm.
quarterbacks. Played like three late in 2023 after Kirk Cousins went down. Jaron Hall, Josh Dobbs, and Nick Mullins, and
Like
was
Mullins.
wide receiver three over that span. So I
Mhm.
think, but I think the biggest thing here is Kevin O'Connell. That factor can't be overlooked. He's had a great deal of success. His offense has had great success in having his confidence in JJ McCarthy. We'll see who they bring in. If they bring in another backup, that'll be interesting. Um, I'm with you on Justin Fields. I think the knock on him is he's not a great passer. Do the legs more than make up for that, or do you think maybe we're overlooking the passing ability?
I don't think we're necessarily overlooking the passing ability. When I look at Justin Fields as a riser, that is in comparison to being one of two in Pittsburgh, and with him
Correct.
having been benched at least once or twice. The prospects of him being the starter there long term weren't very good. So I think that's instantly an improvement for Justin Fields. He also has instant chemistry with Garrett Wilson, the Jets' highly talented receiver. They played in college together. They more than 1,000 yards and 60 something receptions and 9 touchdowns between them at Ohio State. You also have some guy named Brees Hall in the backfield. That is always a plus for a quarterback, particularly one that can run. You now have two major running threats behind that line of scrimmage. But I will say it normally. I wouldn't consider going to the Jets to be a way to rise your dynasty prospects, but I think in this case it certainly does.
Yeah, I think they make it well that the new regime came in and chose him. It says something, but also, he's got to get the job done. This may not be a long term commitment, so that's something to keep in mind for dynasty investors. Is watch some of these contracts, and they'll tell you a little bit. Najee Harris gets a 1 year deal with the Chargers. Great situation,
Mhm.
better offensive line that he's played with. He's been a better quarterback situation, I would
Yeah,
say, that he saw during
definitely.
his time in Pittsburgh. Like, he was there for Ben Roethlisberger's final year, but since then it's been a hodgepodge. But gets in a good situation here, I think. And I think Jalen Warren wins. I think we see a couple situations like this where somebody leaving opens the door for somebody else. You like both these guys.
I do. There's several pairs of ex teammates. I think we're going to talk about here today. This is one of them. I have long ridden Warren and Harris in best ball formats because either one of them or both of them is going to do great just about any game. It's not predictable enough for other fantasy formats, but now I think we've got two starters on our hands. Jalen Warren is going to cement the lead role in Pittsburgh with Najee Harris's departure. And then Najee Harris is in probably the best landing spot he could possibly have picked at the LA Chargers. He had four straight 1,000 yard seasons in a committee in Pittsburgh. Mark it down. Number five this season is the lead back with the Chargers.
Yeah, I don't see anyone there cutting into his workload. And there's a lot of talk that Arthur Smith thought highly of Jalen Warren, or at least the Steelers did. That's why they didn't pick up the contract or pick up the option year of Harris's contract. We love the Jim Harbaugh,
The other one.
Roman, Greg Roman combo. They tend to be a little run heavy. I thought the passing volume was fine late down the stretch last year, but I think you're still getting some great value when you look at the rankings. The football guys right now, Jalen Warren is running back 26, Najee Harris 28. I think those in Dynasty, I think those prices will rise and get more of that. I agree with you as well on Chase Brown. Gets a stable situation. They haven't added anybody. They may well do that in the draft. We'll find out more about
Mhm.
that. Wide receiver Garrett Wilson, as you mentioned, a winner here. I agree with that. Christian Kirk gets traded to Houston. I think his role improves. Devontae Adams, the big winner for me, the guy who scores a lot of touchdowns. The Rams sometimes have trouble punching the ball in. He signs with Los Angeles. Talk a little bit how you'd value him as an older player. He's heading, well past 30 years.
Probably the second best landing spot. If Najee Harris had the best one, I think Devontae Adams has the second best one. He gets out of the Jets. He gets out of the drama around Aaron Rodgers, his longtime teammate. But in return, he gets a very stable quarterback situation, a terrific offense, and gets to line up opposite and alongside Puka Nakua. That's just great gangbusters for anybody. And as for Garrett Wilson, we were chatting about him a second ago. He gets his high school buddy back. I'm sorry, his college buddy back. We just mentioned that. But he also gets rid of a game plan that tries to force the ball to Devontae Adams, which should open up some more targets for him and make him more the alpha of the offense for the Jets. So I like the moves for both of them. But Devontae Adams going to the Rams is just an outstanding landing spot for him.
6 seasons
Love it.
with double-digit touchdown catches that trails only Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, and Marvin Harrison Sr.
Mhm.
So he's in a good spot. And again, they sometimes have a little trouble punching the ball in. Christian Kirk, I do think it's a good move. I think maybe we get some of that volume we saw his first season as soon as they figure out the offensive line issues. Got a new offensive coordinator coming in that maybe the scheme is going to be part of that. Let's look at the tight ends, though. And I think this is another one where we see the teammates or former teammates both open the door for each other. I have the same winners as you do, Evan Ingram and Brenton Strange.
Yeah, so Evan Ingram, he had just a breakout season last year. I don't remember the exact number. It depends on the scoring format, but somewhere in the top 10 of tight ends in scoring. He gets to go to Sean Payton, who has always been clever in his use of tight ends. I expect that Ingram will soak up those short and intermediate throws from a quarterback whose legs you have to respect as a defense. Defenses against Denver can't just sit back and cover Evan Ingram. They've got to deal with and commit somebody to Bo Nix, and that I think will give Ingram some opportunities. And then over in Jacksonville, Brenton Strange has the opportunity to become the man. Uh, when he and Ingram, of course, are on the field together 9 games last year. Ingram was out the other 8. In the 9 games with Ingram, Brenton Strange's snap share was 39%. In the games without Evan Ingram, it was 72%. So he definitely became the lead in that situation. Ingram had 64 targets in 9 games for Jacksonville. 70% of Strange's targets came without him. Those targets are now available. Brenton Strange season is on in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I would say that you mentioned Ingram in 2023, the big breakout, became just the 8th tight end in NFL
Mhm.
history to top 100 catches in a season, had
23.
114 with the Jaguars. Then last year, injury
Yep.
slowed him down a little bit,
Yep.
but Sean Payton, always talking about that joker, as he likes to
Oh.
refer to it, that mismatch kind of player. And Evan Ingram, faster than the guys who normally cover tight ends, bigger than the other guys who try to cover them. He is in a really good spot, and I like Brenton Strange as well. So
Mhm.
great set of winners there. Let's
Yeah.
look at some guys who maybe didn't come out as well. And I know one that I've been all in on for the last 2 years that I'm finally dialing back, although at some point the discount will be hard for me to resist. Anthony Richardson, I think at quarterback, he's the top of the list of fallers right now. But I also agree with you on 2 other guys. And I think the one that we probably have the most agreement on is Sam Darnold now going to the Seattle Seahawks, where they don't have a great offensive line. Geno
No.
Smith, though, I'm not as sure about. Do tell.
So Geno Smith, he's leaving an environment, and of course that environment had DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and a sometimes healthy Tyler Lockett with Kenneth Walker in the backfield. So I'm comparing his situation in Las Vegas to that, not to what would have been in Seattle had he stayed there. In Las Vegas, you've got Brock Bowers is a unicorn. There's really nobody like him in the league. Jacoby Myers had a career year last year, his first year over 1,000 yards. But if Bowers is a unicorn, pretty much everyone else in the receiving core is a hobby horse, and that offensive line isn't great. Our Matt Batanti ranked them, I believe, 22nd or 23rd among offensive lines entering free agency, and that may actually still be better than what he was facing in Seattle
Definitely
now.
better. I think Seattle was
But
like 30 in those rankings,
yeah,
right? So
but it's still not great. And to me, Geno Smith is going to take a bit of a step backwards from a dynasty standpoint. And of course, he's also a year older than he was last year.
yeah, and Sam Darnold's going to have that problem with the offensive lines. You have concerns about how he handles pressure anyway as we go back in time.
Yeah.
Will he be seeing the ghost? Anthony Richardson, obviously, Daniel Jones comes in, one of the guys you mentioned there, Jeff,
Yep.
as
Yep.
a potential winner if he takes over that starting role. We'll see. I think the Colts, at least the people currently in charge, are heavily invested in getting the most out of Anthony Richardson. They brought him in knowing he needed to develop. But I think from a fantasy perspective, you know, like he may be a buy candidate for me because the discount's going to be so cheap. People are going to be giving up on him.
Yep.
But I think all these guys you could definitely classify as fallers. Geno Smith, I have a little more confidence in,
Mhm.
but Sam Darnold, not so much. I think
Not so
he's not in a
much.
good spot. And also his contract, this could be a 1 year prove it kind of deal. He might find himself in the same situation as guys like Russell Wilson or
Yep.
or Kirk Cousins, where if it's not working out, maybe we see Sam Howell under center late in the
Mhm.
season before the guarantees for next year, the injury guarantees kick in. If he's still playing late in the season. So J.K. Dobbins and Rico Dowdle, you have listed as your fallers at running back. I have one of those listed. It's Rico Dowdle. I think we can both agree playing behind Chuba Hubbard, probably not a good spot in a Carolina offense where I know I've talked to the people who cover that team on a daily basis. They told me how much the coaches think of Chuba Hubbard. This is more of a cover for Jonathan Brooks until he can get back. He's going to miss another season with an ACL. So we're both down on Dowdle. Is Dobbins maybe rescuable if he finds a good landing spot? And where would that be if it is?
I think he could be rescuable. I mean, he has just had a tough break after tough break after tough break in his career. So much talent, so much potential. Every year we seem to be in a position of saying he's going to break out this year. He's going to be in a situation this year. And most of the time, something bad's going to happen to him. I'm not saying it'll happen this year. I certainly do not wish that on him at all. JK, if you happen to be watching this, we love you. We hope the best for you. I hope you have a great season. But he lost whatever role that he had in LA with Najee Harris coming in. And from that point, there are, of course, a number of running back needy teams. Imagine most of them will wait till after the draft before they make any of the moves. We've got a very deep draft class at running back coming in. And so Dobbins, I think, is still probably an injury to a starter away from significant playing time. Certainly could be a number two in the right scheme, the right offense. But at least in terms of where we always wanted him to be, he definitely did not get improved on that during free agency.
Yeah, so far, I mean, Cleveland might be a reasonable landing spot for him if
Yeah.
that could come about. But the shares I'm currently getting of Jerome Ford and best ball. But from a dynasty perspective, both of those guys are going to suffer greatly. Rico Dowdle played really well down the stretch last
Yeah.
year for Dallas. So we'll see what Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders can do in his place. But I speak of Miles Sanders. If we're looking at that kind of role for Rico Dowdle, when we look at 353 scrimmage yards last year for Miles Sanders, that seems like a similar trajectory. We agree on the wide receiver fallers too. I think these are the easiest ones for me. In Pittsburgh, DK Metcalf lands there, comes over from Seattle, and George Pickens. They together are a very
Together.
explosive duo. That'll be interesting. And of course, Jalen McMillan with the return of Chris Godwin to Tampa Bay. Although I do think this might open a buy opportunity for
Yeah,
me. We'll talk about that in a
absolutely.
few minutes. Tell me what your expectations are. Is this quarterback dependent? Could the situation change in Pittsburgh if they land Aaron Rodgers or if Russell Wilson returns? Or is this just you don't see this duo being dynamic together?
My weather forecasting hat is on. I see a 100% chance of grumbling about not getting the ball at various times from each of them, and perhaps both of them at the same time. There's a really good, probably 30% chance of fistfights going to erupt as a result of this. They don't have a starting quarterback today. If it's Russell Wilson, I don't think that really helps them. And on top of all of that, they have Arthur Smith, which means they will spend an awful lot of time blocking for people like Darnell Washington to get a 6-yard completion at 3rd and 14.
Well,
So
I do think it's interesting that DK is maybe a little more well rounded now. Can handle a more varied role. Not and George Pickens can be the deep threat. But I'm with you. I feel like this is maybe ill fated. I hope I turn out to be wrong.
yeah, me too.
But a lot is going to depend on the quarterback. Jalen McMillan's the easy one, man. He was dynamo late last season. After when he finally caught fire there, when
Yeah.
Mike Evans was back and kind of Kate Otten took a back seat, the touchdown numbers were phenomenal. Maybe he can still keep that role as a wide receiver 3, but thinking he is not a faller, in terms of dynasty value. So we'll talk about some of our buy prospects
Mhm.
ahead. The tight end was difficult to find fallers. You
Yeah.
had an interesting one. Go ahead and break them out.
Well, I thought of Jared Wiley here, which I'm sure a number of folks watching this will go either who or how could he possibly fall any farther than he already is. But he was one of those sneaky kinds of draft picks that dynasty drafters were making in the 3rd and 4th rounds of dynasty rookie drafts last year, thinking that we have a very talented, very well-rounded tight end who could become the heir apparent to Travis Kelce in Kansas City in an offense that loves to use tight ends. That hasn't happened, and actually, it's gotten worse. Wiley is already behind Noah Gray, and then Kansas City signed Robert Tonyan. Oh, and Kelsey is coming back for another season, so that drops him to around fourth or so on the depth chart. And then former Cowboy Peyton Hendershot's in the mix too, so he could actually even drop all the way down to 5th. So maybe not much of a fall per se, but certainly not what dynasty managers who have a lot of shares of him from their rookie drafts last year wanted to see when we drafted him.
I'm going to go ahead and throw in, I don't know if he's a baller or not. I might be stretching a little bit. Mike Gesicki, as long as T. Higgins is healthy, I don't know what kind of role he's going to find in that Cincinnati offense. They did give him a nice deal. He's coming off a 65 catch season, but his best games came without Higgins.
Right.
We've seen Higgins miss like 5 games a year the last couple of years. Maybe it's an insurance policy. Maybe his relationship with Joe Burrow or the chemistry they developed last year will carry over and they can make him a big part of the offense. But I'm not going to get over enthusiastic, and neither is Fantasy Nation. He is not rising
Mhm.
greatly, even if he's not falling. All right, let's get a little ahead of the curve, Jeff. By the way, again, Jeff Blaylock is my guest today here on the hot seat. You can follow him on the X at Jeff Blaylock. His name posts tons of great content, some of it mine. So I'm going to give him a little credit where credit's due there. We're going to get ahead of the curve here and look at some under the radar moves that we both like, and I think we have some different ones here. So let's go. Let's go ahead and go with some running backs that we both like. You like Elijah Mitchell. Talk a little bit about his prospects in Kansas City now.
I do like Elijah Mitchell as an under the radar move. The Chiefs signed him to a 1 year deal fairly inexpensively for them. Mitchell did lose all of 2024 to a hamstring injury that he suffered in August. I'm sorry, he had surgery in August to correct that. August of, and has never played. He's never played in a full season because of injuries. But when he does have a lot of playing time and can be a significant player, like in 2021 with the 49ers, he had 963 rushing yards, 137 receiving yards. We'll always take 1,100 scrimmage yards from an RB2. We can get it. He joins a running back room that has got Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt and Keontae Ingram, all capable of doing good things. Quite possibly none of them consistently. If Andy Reid rides a hot hand, Elijah Mitchell may very well be that hot hand at times. So he's, to me, a safe person to acquire, put on the bench, and use him when he's ready. He is available in 93% of sleeper leagues today. So you could probably pick him up for nothing right now.
I agree. And, we did not include Isaiah Pacheco on our fallers. And I don't know, what is Isaiah Pacheco right now? What are we doing with him in Dynasty? Is he a buy, sell, hold?
Well, I know that Sean Payton likes to use the term Joker in a great way, in a creative and wonderful way, and I tend to use it as not a great way. And to me, we've got the Pacheco is kind of more the Joker in the running back role. And again, I don't mean that as a slight on Pacheco. It's that it's very difficult to tell exactly what his role is going to be going forward. With Kareem Hunt being having a great season last year, being a bit of a hammer, Pacheco having a bit of an off year, and then of course now you have Elijah Mitchell in the mix. We didn't include Pacheco in our followers, but perhaps should have, because I think he is ceding even the 1B role potentially to Mitchell here, but it may be a three-headed monster coming out of Kansas City, which would kind of render all three of them unstartable for Dynasty until one of them is out of that rotation.
Yeah, I think we both might be looking at him as a potential mover in the next segment here. I like Isaac Guerrero in San Francisco, a guy that we saw brief glimpses of, looking very impressive. Now there's no Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason traded to Minnesota. Isaac Guerrero, the path is clear for him, except for Christian
Right.
McCaffrey. We saw how that worked out for the people behind Christian McCaffrey last year. Look, I think McCaffrey is in a good position to rebound, assuming he's healthy. He'll get a dominant workload, but investing or thinking that Isaac Guerrero doesn't gain some steam here, he does as the number two, and he's a good fit for the offense. They know how to use him. He's got good speed, so he's had trouble staying healthy too. We mentioned Bretton Strange. I think he's a kind of a under the radar guy that people aren't talking about, but we talked about him already. But one that I hadn't thought of that you like is Cavante Turpin in Dallas.
Yes, not just because he's a TCU guy, go Frogs, and I
Go
mentioned Jared
Frogs.
Wiley, TCU guy, a minute ago.
Go
But
Frogs.
I love Cavante Turpin. He is known primarily as a special teams player, and actually, when he signed his 3 year, $18 million extension a few weeks ago, he was trumpeted in the media as being the highest paid special teams player in the league, and that's ignoring the growing offensive role that he has. He's dynamic with the ball in his hands. 2024, he had career highs in receptions, receiving yards, rushing attempts. He had 512 yards from scrimmage. And at the moment in Dallas, he's competing with Jalen Tolbert to be the wide receiver two with Brandon Cook's departure. I expect Dallas will draft a wide receiver at some point. They may sign one of these aging veterans that we talked about at the top of the show. But at this point, it's still worth picking up Turpin. As if nothing else, he is a dramatic boom or bust home run hitting flex play you can put into your lineup. He's available in 86% of sleeper leagues today.
Matt Waldman calls speed the cleavage of attributes for players. So I'm opening my centerfold right now, the Next Gen Stats top speeds page. Cavante Turbin, the fastest player in the NFL last year, hit 22.36 miles an hour in Week 11. Oh, also, he's the seventh fastest player, hitting 21.85 miles per an hour in Week 17 last year. Oh, he's also the 15th fastest player at 21.64 in Week 6. Love the speed, love that pick. He is an under the radar kind of guy, the kind of player that maybe you can get off people if they aren't paying much attention in your leagues. So don't be afraid to do that. Let's look at these buy low, sell high candidates we've been hinting at here. I think, sell highs right now. Najee Harris, right? That's the top of the list.
Najee Harris, Pacheco, who we just mentioned. If you
Can you
can
sell
convince
him high
somebody,
though?
you could try.
I think I'd
You
be
could
looking to
try.
buy. I think I'd be
I
looking to buy,
be
hoping
looking to
a
buy Pacheco.
disappointed investor. Like there's two
Yeah,
two paths forward. Like
there
Isaiah
are.
Pacheco that we saw late last season, coming off an injury, a similar injury to what we saw Tony Pollard need. What until week 10 the next
Yep.
year to fully recover up from after he suffered it late. I think it was in January of the year before. So maybe we see a similar timetable. So maybe he is a more of a buy low candidate right now for
Could
me,
be.
hoping for more. But and Garrett Wilson is a sell high. I agree with that too. Go ahead and dig deeper.
Yeah, I think there's a really good chance that Justin Fields' third stop is no better than his first two. His career passing rating is 83.9, according to StatHead. That's the seventh lowest over the first 50 games of an NFL career since 2010. He's gotten over 200 passing yards in a game 15 of those 50 times. And then Wilson has a career catch rate south of 60% himself. He ranks 44th out of the 55 wide receivers with at least 200 targets over the last three seasons. So Garrett Wilson's currently the wide receiver 13 in our Football Guys Dynasty rankings, consensus rankings. That's actually lower than I thought it was going to be. It had been in the low single digits a few weeks ago. So there's at least a couple of the folks smarter than I am who are already valuing him down a little bit. But I think he's still got a potential wide receiver one storyline and the upside for that. And I think you could sell that. Because he is a top flight receiver, or at least I could project him as one. He's worth a first round pick. He's worth multiple seconds, a starting quarterback in superflex leagues, or somebody if you want to just swap the position. Lad McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, T. Higgins. I'd rather have all three of those guys before I have Garrett Wilson on my
I
roster
would
right now.
remind the purchaser of this 2023 season to Chicago, where DJ Moore showed up his first year
Yeah,
there, playing 13 games with the said Justin Fields as his quarterback. Had 76 catches over that time, but on the season, he had his career best season. Tyson Bagent got in the mix there a little bit, 4 games. But it was 96 catches. It was a good season. It was a
great
wide
season.
receiver 6 season. So I would probably be selling that portion as well. And I do think that's a good call. The buy low, look, man, I'm going to be buying so much Jalen McMillan right now. I'm sending trade offers today for Jalen McMillan. Who are you sending trade offers for today?
I am sending trade offers today for a couple of running backs, Blake Corum in LA, the backup there, and then Jerome Ford in Cleveland, who at the moment is quietly the RB1, assuming that Nick Chubb doesn't resign, that one of these other running backs that we've talked about doesn't end up landing there. Behind Ford right now, you've got Pierre Strong, who's done a lot of special teams work, has been in and out of the lineup, and then John Kelly Jr. And I had to look him up, Bob. I did not know who he was. You would never guess. He was picked in the sixth round of the 2018 NFL draft by the Rams, has been primarily a practice squad player ever since. He's currently number 3 on the depth chart. So Jerome Ford is one I'd like to acquire. I'd be happy to send Javonte Williams, Jalen Wright for him, or even a wide receiver like Demario Douglas or Michael Wilson, because I think Ford's going to put up some numbers this year for what will be a lousy offense. But an RB1 on a lousy offense is still an RB1.
Think people will be soured on Blake Corum enough to get a decent deal on him?
I do. I think impatience is the key here. We were expecting that Kyron Williams was going to yield some of those snaps last year. He didn't. Corum's snap share exceeded 20% just one time last year. I think that was the game that Williams missed a quarter of. And it was below 10% 7 times. He had just 65 touches, 265 scrimmage yards, no touchdowns. He's probably currently on some league mates IR spot because that's where he ended last season, was on injured reserve. At some point, maybe not this year, but at some point, Kyron Williams is going to yield some snaps. And in our football guys dynasty rankings in our trade machine, tight end like Kate Otten or Pat Fryermuth or Isaiah Likely is about the price point here. Maybe a 2025 third if you wouldn't want to part with a tight end or they don't want one, 2026 second. But I think Corum is somebody you can snap up low now. If you wait till the season starting, that price is just going to go up.
There you have it, kids. A lot of good content there. I hope you enjoyed the program. Jeff Blaylock doing a great job on the X device at Jeff Blaylock, Blue Sky as well. You can find me there at Football Die Hard at both locations. We've covered the big winners, the losers. We've hit some risers and some potential buy low candidates. Both of us really think Garrett Wilson is a good pick there. Jerome Ford, Jalen McMillan as well. Big winners in this draft. We like the quarterbacks. Fields, Daniels, McCarthy, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, both winners for us. Devontae Adams, he's old. If you're in win now mode, he might help you get there. Garrett Wilson, Christian Kirk, too. Brent Strange and Evan Ingram, big winners as well. So lots of good stuff. Again, not so good for the losers. Anthony Richardson, Geno Smith, Rico Dowdle, DK Metcalf, and George Pickens. It's a sad day, but we don't have a sad trombone, so we're not playing it. We've got upcoming content. Like I'm gonna be away next week on vacation, so I'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll do some more stuff. Maybe start looking at some draft prep, hitting the rookies a little more, and digging deeper on that. Right now, go to the Football Guys Rookie Draft Guide version 2.0 is available for free. Download it at footballguys.com/rookie guide. Of course, check out all the content at Football Guys, including my weekly notebook. Comes out every weekend, so check that out. Jeff, what do you got coming up?
I actually have vacation too next week. I'm going out to Big Bend National Park to do some hiking. So when I get back,
Yes.
I like you will be diving into rookies and trying to finalize the rankings I have and get my strategies in place for the drafts that are coming up in my dynasty leagues.
All right, man. We'll be ready to grind. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate you. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you back in a couple weeks. Again, put your comments in. Who's your risers? Who's your fallers? Who's your big winners and losers? Like to hear what you think. Look forward to that and look forward to seeing you next time on the hot seat.